Yo, Sleepy Sheepy here. Today we're going to be looking at these Beast Claw weapons called the Red Bear's Claws. And this is a primarily strength weapon, so we'll be running this build at level 139 with most of our points poured into strength, hitting 63. We also have 25 dexterity, and that's just due to Millicent's prosthesis. Normally I'd just run 20, and 35 endurance just for the weight capacity. As for our armor, we'll be running this set, which I feel like looks pretty cool with the red claws, but obviously you could run something like the Blythe armor, which has less poise but looks more like beastie themed, I guess. But yeah, we have the Helm of Solitude, the Fire Prelate armor, we have the Briar Gauntlets, and the Greaves of Solitude. And then for our talismans, we'll be running Millicent's Prosthesis, the Axe Talisman, and the Rottenwing Sword Insignia. So these two, the Millicent's Prosthesis as well as the Rottenwing Sword Insignia, are going to boost your successive attack damage, and the moveset on this comes out with lots of multi-hits. So if you're landing them or you're landing phantom hits, then it means you're going to be getting that talisman procced frequently. You'll also note that I have the Axe Talisman, which you could swap over to the Bullgoat Talisman to hit 121 poise, which is pretty massive, or you can run this slightly lower poise, just 91, and have the Axe Talisman, because I find the fully charged R2 to be really strong. I would say that's the best element of this moveset, because obviously you are in this kind of crouch state before it happens, but you get a ton of forward momentum, and it's really nice like to get around corners or something, because you can kind of just free aim it a little bit and just do some cool things with it. So I'd say the fully charged heavy is probably one of the best elements of this moveset. It gets a little bit of hyper armor after you're done charging, and it does quite a bit of damage, has 2 hits, so the multi-hit talisman is good. The running light attack is also pretty good for chase downs, which is really nice. You just have so much forward momentum. You also have an amazing ravioli step. Just the distance that covers is so crazy. It's I don't know. This is how they nerfed light roll, and I'm all for it. The jumping light attack is probably the least exciting, and it's similar to most claw weapons with the jumping light attack. The jumping heavy is pretty good, comes out in these quick 3 slashes, and does a decent amount of poise damage, which is going to be the most important element of this build. It does not instant poise break, so getting the poise chips in and kind of knowing where to expect your running heavy or something to poise break is going to be the name of the game for being successful with these. I would say these are not the strongest weapon, but they are a lot of fun, and I think you can do a lot with them, especially with the fully charged heavy and Millicent's Prosthesis and Rottenwing Sword Insignia. Just those things together work out quite well and make for a super versatile and just interesting weapon to play. The crouch attack also comes out pretty fast and has a little bit of forward momentum, which is nice, but I found myself definitely using the jumping heavy, the running heavy, and the fully charged heavy the most, just because the poise breaks are going to be the best on those. So yeah, without further ado, if you wouldn't mind considering subscribing, I'd definitely appreciate it. And let's go ahead and jump into the invasions and duels. Alright, before we actually get into the gameplay, I do need to make one bear claw related joke, and that's that a bear walks into a bar. He says to the bartender, "I'll have a gin and tonic." And the bartender says, "What's with the big paws?" And the bear holds up its arms and says, "I've always had them. You know, big paws." Okay, if you haven't unsubscribed at this point, I appreciate it, and we can move on to the showcase where we have a 2v1, and we're mostly dealing with this Ash of War from the Phantom. They're going for it pretty liberally, and we need to just kind of look out for just all the swings of this multi-hit that they've got going on. And getting trapped in this corner is not helping. We do manage to somehow find our way out, and we need to back up a little bit. We do get both heals in, and we take a little bit of damage. We go for a fully charged heavy, but it looks like we're not going to be in reach, so we decide to change the angle of it, turn around, so we don't have that forward momentum into them. And that's something that's really nice about the fully charged heavy, is that you can kind of change the direction at the last minute before it goes off. We do get a couple quick hits in on this Phantom here, and everybody starts going for their Ashes of War. Something I should have mentioned in the beginning is that this does have an Ash of War, but it's pretty bad. It's slow. it comes out just not with much range, with no forward momentum. It has a lot of poise damage, which is like the best benefit of it, but I found it pretty unuseful, and just the fully charged heavy to be a much better version of what the Ash of War was probably trying to do. So here we managed to finally take care of the Phantom. The host is going in for some swing with the light greatsword, I believe, that they're using, and we're just trying to space them a little bit, try not to get hit by too many of these swings, because I still don't know like the full moveset of these weapons. I need to spend some more time with them to just kind of be able to predict how things are going to react. But here we get a nice poise break. We're coming in with a nice jumping heavy. We don't actually get it to connect, but we do back off a little bit. This player is going for some aspect of their Crucible incantations, and here we get a nice running light and just finish them off. So yeah, the forward momentum, and especially if you have kind of an idea of how poise chip they are. For those that aren't familiar, poise chips, it means like if you aren't expecting to get a poise break in that moment, but your opponent has taken some poise damage. So let's say they have 100 poise, your attack does 75 poise, then if you land your attack and they don't poise break, they now have 75 poise damage out of 100. And so your next hit will poise break. So that's kind of the theory around like poise counting, and it wasn't really a thing in patch 1.10, but it was a thing in patch 1.09. Anyway, it's just kind of knowing when to expect your opponent to have their poise broken and then capitalizing on that. Next up we have a 3v1, and we have a player with the double anvil setup, which is interesting, and no armor. We're kind of having a hard time actually reaching them. I think they had some latency with me, so it was very hard to catch a light rolling player with high latency, even with a weapon that has a great forward momentum. We're going to try to hang out by this PvE a little bit, just because it's just distracting the other players, and we really want to focus on this light rolling player because, I don't know, they just kind of rubbed me the wrong way with their light roll build and their high latency, and they're just like one-shotness. So we're going to, again, focus on them, try to avoid these pokes from the Great Katana, and just try to use our forward momentum to catch this player. They go for a swing, which leaves them open for a little bit, but it feels dangerous, and then we're able to hop in there and finally get most of the damage we need. But this player is still hanging on, so we throw a couple fan daggers their way, and that's enough to catch them. Not really worth trying to go for a light attack that might miss on that high ping. And now it's just a 2v1. One other joke that I wanted to make was this build is kind of like a bull in a china shop, except you're a bear in a library. That particularly makes sense for this invasion area. So again, if you're still here, I do appreciate it. I'll try to keep the bear jokes to a minimum, but it's going to be hard for me personally. The PvE is doing a good job here. They're sending a lot of spells, and once this player gets trapped in hit stun for a little while, we're able to catch up and do what we need to do. We see a blue has come into the world. The PvE and me are now working hard to keep this player cornered, and the blue does not have time to do much. We get out a couple hits. They're actually blocking for that, which is interesting. I feel like you don't see that much with just a regular sword, but they don't get guard broken, and we're not able to finish them off. This next one was an absolute doozy if it's the invasion that I'm thinking of. We get a couple quick hits in. Radon goes for just kind of the classic Kevin Ash of War, and we do need to back off a little bit. This one, I was really trying to utilize the fully charged heavy and just play around corners and try to play with that. So you'll see me have some success, some failure with that. I just feel like if you can do the like kind of charge up animation where you're crouched while you're behind the corner and then just kind of pop out with your like poise breaking attack, it can be pretty strong. So that was the idea right there, but the player was not in the right spot. So again, we're gonna just kind of keep that on the top of our brain here. We get a couple like light hits in. We're not doing a ton of damage on the Kevin player. We're not getting the poise breaks that we're hoping for, and we now have a blue to deal with. So again, here we're going to go around a corner. We don't manage to get it, but we have lots of corners in this area. That's part of the reason I liked invading here so much. And we really just need to back off at this point. It's a lot of stuff happening. We throw a frost pot and do manage to get around 760 damage, 770 maybe, on the blue, but we need to back off as the host is now using Rivers of Blood, which is still strong, unfortunately. So it's just, if you're paying attention to it and you're not trying to just really like focus that player, especially when it's the host using it. And they've got backup that can just potentially poise break you while you're in that Ash of War. It can be pretty hard to deal with. We get a fully charged heavy on the blue, getting them to about 1/3 health. We kind of need to back off, avoid the Rivers of Blood. We do get a little bit of an Estus punish, but it's not that much. The fact that they're turtling is kind of hard, and here again, Rivers of Blood is just a nuisance. We can't get the guard break riposte that we would like to. We need to kind of play it safe. And here we just get the heavy attack of all time, where we get all 3 players simultaneously, which massively boosts the multi-hit talismans, and we get the chase down on the blue. So I was super happy about that. It felt like just everybody lined up perfectly to receive that fully charged heavy, and that's kind of the weapon at its best. Now we have like one of my least favorite combinations, and that's Hand of Melania with Rivers of Blood in the background. Like, either one of those things are totally fine to counter on their own, but when you're just getting poise damage by both of them simultaneously, it feels pretty bad. And at this point, I'm pretty low on resources, so I'm trying to just negate their FP as much as possible, maybe get them slept so they don't have as much FP, and also I can like take some time to actually deliver some damage without getting caught by like just 1,000 poise breaks. The host just kind of separates themselves from the Phantom for a second. We have some time to get real aggro on this player, and unfortunately we're not able to get the finish here while the host is just Rivers of Blooding us from behind. So that's the other bad part about Rivers of Blood, is just once you start going for chase downs, the amount of range on it is really unfortunate. But you know, Elden Ring's been out for a while now, so you all know this. But yeah, sometimes it hurts more than others. We tried to get a Frost Pot off. It was not quite successful, so I was hoping that would do the last bit of damage. And we're getting a little greedy here. We're taking a lot more damage than we should be, and we really need to back off. Especially after that fully charged heavy, we don't want to deal with losing this invasion just because we want this to be in the showcase. So we do what we can to stay alive. We ended up throwing down some warming stones and stuff, and so did our opponents. We got back to full health, but we are totally out of heals at this point. And just the katana swings don't stop coming once they start coming, and they get a blood loss proc, and now we are totally out of HP. We've got nothing left. There's a hunter in our world, and they're just super aggro, so we go for the only thing we can against Rivers of Blood, and that's a parry, and followed up with a riposte. So yeah, we wanted to make it happen with the Beast Claws, but sometimes it's just not the tool for the job, and you know, getting that parry is definitely the tool for the job. So yeah, here we again are using this kind of same area, this like square of stone tomes, I would say, and we're trying to use the corner as a way to land the heavy attack. So you can see me just kind of timing it randomly. I'm not totally sure when they're going to turn the corner, and I'm still getting used to the timing of the weapon. But here, this is exactly the moment I wanted. Like, we get fully charged heavy hit on both players. It's a nice corner attack. So that's the type of thing that I would like to be doing more. There we get a nice fully charged heavy again, and we're just kind of feeling out the weapon here and figuring out what strats are working. It took me a little while to figure out that the fully charged heavy was actually the play. I would say you can do a lot of good things with like the light attacks and just an uncharged heavy and all that good stuff, but having the fully charged heavy with the Axe Talisman just gives you kind of the AR boost you need for this weapon, as well as the poise breaks that you're really looking for. That's part of the reason that I'm using the Briar Gauntlets, and I didn't use them in the arena just because I feel like people don't like Briars in the arena, and you don't need to worry about aim punching your opponent as much in invasions, but I was just trying to get some poise chips with the Briar. So running full Briars on this set probably isn't a bad idea. It's not ideal for fashion. You'll notice that I use the gauntlets, which get completely obscured by the weapon itself, which is kind of interesting. Like, there's no way to tell what gauntlets you're wearing. So it's also kind of sneaky, which you know, people may or may not appreciate. We do get a jumping heavy on this player with the funny helmet on, and then we get a nice trade with another jumping heavy. That's another thing that I noticed with these, is that they come out like, I feel like the hits land a little bit later than I'm expecting. So this player is just not able to hit me because I'm still in iframes and I drink my physic and then kind of back out a little bit. Again, we're trying to play corners in this as best we can. We're trying to throw some freezing pots or sleep pots. These do physical damage, so the freezing pots are, as always, going to just help us out. They're kind of a must, I would say, on strength builds, just because so frequently you're going for pure physical damage, and it's really helpful. We do get a sleep pot to connect and get a jumping heavy for about 700 damage, and then we start going full beast mode after this player. I'm sorry, I said they would stop, but they're going to continue. And we don't actually get the finish. We go for one Ash of War, and you could just see it in that moment. It's just that swipe with like the kind of wind around it, and just the lack of forward momentum, as well as kind of the slowness of it. It's just very reactable. It doesn't have range. It's kind of a letdown, to be honest. So not the best Ash of War, but still, it's good to know that it's there. And there are some instances where I'd say it's helpful. If you have multiple opponents just kind of rushing you and you think they're all going to delay their attack, you can go for that Ash of War and stun multiple of them. But also, like, the kind of the downside is it doesn't do a ton of damage. So we do manage to take care of the Phantom, and then as the host comes in with a light greatsword attack, we get a nice roll and backstab for the finish. And that's going to conclude our invasion portion of the showcase, and we'll move on to the duels. Alright, so our first opponent here is going to be running the old meta, which is the Shamshir, and we'll be running the new meta, which is obviously the Bear Claws. On paper, this is probably a losing matchup if our opponent knows the moveset for the Bear Claws, but we do have the ability to knowledge check them if they're not super familiar with this. So we can see how the forward momentum is being really helpful. We're able to land some hits with the running heavy. We go for our Ash of War. Again, it's not great. We're able to land it a little bit more consistently in duels than in invasions, I would say, but it's good to know that it's an option, and it's going to poise break, which are the two biggest things. Here we get a couple heavy attacks for a decent amount of damage, and we do need to back off here. Again, we're just trying to space and utilizing our forward momentum to just kind of avoid a lot of the things that are difficult about the Shamshir, namely that it just kind of reaction covers a lot of ground, and when you're able to move with so much more forward momentum, it does kind of nerf the Shamshir's ability to kind of pressure that neutral area. So eventually we do get the finish and come out with the victory, and yeah, the Bear Claws reign supreme. So moving on, we have a player that's going to be running a Great Katana, and they're going to be going for blood tax, I believe, several times, which isn't really to their benefit, but it is interesting to see it on a Great Katana. So we go ahead and punish it with a jumping attack, followed up by a heavy, and I find that there's good synergy there between a jumping heavy followed up by another heavy attack, just because again, you get that forward momentum as a roll catch, and it does a lot of poise damage. Here, we're able to actually use our Ash of War and get the finish on that player. You can see how slow it comes out. If they had gone for probably any other attack that wasn't blood tax, I would have gotten knocked out of it, and I don't believe it has hyper armor. So I found that I was getting punished for it quite a bit in invasions, but that it was slightly more useful in duels. So here we start getting some nice pressure on this player. They go for a block, which was definitely a bad move, and we're able to get the riposte and finish them off for the victory. And yeah, I would say just blocking against these with a smaller shield is going to be tough because you're probably going to be taking a lot of damage. This player is running the Smith Script daggers in the offhand, which is cool to see. Those are some of the new throwing daggers, and a light great sword, I believe. They're using an Ash of War that I have not seen before, so it was interesting to see it, but I don't think it's particularly good other than the fact that it buffs your weapon. It's kind of like a slower version of Frozen Needle, but I would say free aiming would probably be your best bet, but it's still not great. Here we get 2 swings of the Ash of War, so it comes in a 3-part series where you go for one swing with one hand, then another with your other hand, and then both in kind of an X pattern with your third one, and then it just repeats. So you do have 3 swings, and that could potentially be helpful if you miss with the first one and you think they're going to go for a punish. You can probably go for the second. It'll come out a little bit faster. But we've gotten our opponent here to very low health. We go for a ravioli step just to try to cover that gap, but it's still a little bit too far, and we just kind of continue to pressure pressure with light attacks and eventually get the roll catch for the victory. Next up we have a player with another light greatsword, so they're going for the new Hoarfrost Stomp, which is scary looking, but it's very, very reactable, so I could see it being a problem if you're not expecting it, like if there's a group of 3 that you're trying to face and they're looking the other way and you just kind of come up behind them and hit them with that. I think that could be useful, but it's pretty easy to react to, and just the movement is already something we're all familiar with just from dealing with Hoarfrost Stomp, and it's slower than that. So if you know what Hoarfrost Stomp looks like and you see it coming, then you'll probably be able to react similarly to this. So also it could be quite good in small spaces, so if you have a couple people in a very small space and you're able to pull it off, maybe with Endure or something, it could be strong. But again, I still need to cook with a lot of these new things, and I'm just excited to try them. Here we do get a nice successful ravioli step and get the forward momentum we need to begin the pressure for the finish and come out with the victory. Our next duel is going to be our last duel, and we'll be playing against somebody using the Rolana twin swords. So we're able to shut down their Ash of War before they get it started, which is nice to know that it doesn't have like frame 1 hyper armor, and all that pressure results in a lot of damage. And here we see they're going to parry, so we go for our Ash of War and get the finish. If you enjoyed the showcase or want to see more DLC builds, definitely would appreciate if you wouldn't mind considering subscribing. And yeah, I hope you have a great day.